You can continue anytime. I'm ready for you. We got so many cameras, you can continue anytime.
Yeah, well, and that's what editing was all about.
Yeah, believe me.
And so, as I said, back in 1959, I became very interested in the world of the occult as it applies to, or the hidden world as it applies to politics and religion. And within the past 25 years, I have begun to look at the occult or hidden world of commerce and how banks and government works. The one thing I will say that the past 50 years has given me is, I would say that nothing in this world works the way you think it does. Nothing. Governments do not operate the way you think they do. Banks do not do what you think they do. The police department is not here for what you think it is. Nothing in your world works the way you think it does. There's a far higher, bigger picture going on the earth for at least 7,000 years of human history that we modern day people really just don't relate to. All we know is what we live with today, but never suspecting that the institutions of power, banking, education, the military-industrial complex of the world has taken hundreds of years to develop. And over these last hundreds of years, great governments have come into being. Our great country of America, the United States of America, which was the first time on the history of the earth that a people rose up to demand their freedom and impacted the whole world. Because there's never been a time, I don't care when you look back and how far back you go into history, never been a time when the people of any country have ever raised up to declare their freedom. It's never happened. And that's what made America so interesting and so provocative back in the 1800s, is that Americans decided they wanted to be free. So what a clever idea that was. No one had ever tried that before. And of course, when you are a slave, and you are considered to be a slave, when you declare yourself to be free, you're going to make some enemies. And you're going to terrorize your masters who thought they owned you. So now you're going to be a terrorist. And they are now able to kill you because you're a terrorist. Why? Because you have terrorized your masters who thought they owned you. And now they see that the slaves are deciding to revolt and don't want to be owned anymore, and they want to be free, and so there was a war. We call it the Revolutionary War, in which Americans decided they wanted to be free, and they wanted to be free at any cost. And so there was a great war that started in our country against our enslavers, which was Europe. Now, if you keep in mind that for at least 2,300 years, Rome has dominated Europe. First of all, obviously, under the Caesars of Rome. And when the Caesars Rome fell at about the 5th century AD, a new power rose in Rome called the Vatican. Well, the Vatican simply took over the position of Caesar of Rome. And so today, the papacy or the Pope is still basically Caesar in Rome. And this is why all of the nations of Europe all come to bow down to the Pope in Rome, because he is, in point of fact, Caesar. His official title is Pontifex Maximus. And that was a term that was given to Caesar of Rome. So the point I'm making here is that for 3,200 years, Rome has dominated Europe. And for 3,200 years, Europe has dominated the world. Therefore, there is the old saying that all roads lead to Rome. So when you begin to see the wars and the tragedies and the things that are going on in the world today, the corrupt politics, the lies and the deception and the wars and incredible things which we're seeing, that people are becoming more and more concerned and worried about what's going on in the world scene, and where are we going as a civilization, especially Europe now and America. Just keep in mind that what you are seeing today, happening on the earth today, with all the wars and economic problems, etc., all has a pedigree, and all has a background which you need to understand. It's called the history of our country, the history of Rome, the history of the Roman Empire. And so this is why I have always wanted to uncover, so to speak, the hidden history of Europe, the hidden history of America, and in point of fact, the hidden history of the world we live in. Because as I said before, so much of our religion, our government, our commercial systems, our educational systems are all based on ancient concepts and belief systems. And unless and until you educate yourself as to how your world operates, you're never really going to experience freedom. Because as a man thinketh, so is he. And so one has to start thinking in terms of how would it be in your life if you were truly free? And what would the world be like if humans were actually free and no longer had slave owners, if the whole human race were free to do what they wish? We're not talking about anarchy. We're talking about legitimate government which protects the rights of all good people and allows individuals to be who they want to be and to do the best they can. And so this is what I have always wanted to do, is to help young people, especially young people, to understand where the world they live in has come from and how it got here. Because you cannot fix anything, you can't help any problem if you don't know how the problem started. If you don't, who was it? Albert Einstein said that you can't depend on the same people who caused the problem to fix it. So I believe that knowledge is power. And this is why so many people in America especially feel powerless, because they have no knowledge. It's written in the Old Testament of the Bible. Profound things have been said in the Bible. For instance, it is written in the Old Testament that my people are dying from a lack of knowledge. And that's certainly true. Today people are dying, they're wasting their lives away because they're ignorant, ill-informed, and unread as to how the world works. And there's another scripture that I think is extremely important, that says, where there is no vision, the people perish. Let me say that again. Where there is no vision, the people perish. Simply meaning that as long as civilization does not understand where we have come from, where we are now, and where is the whole human race going in the future, if you don't have that kind of spiritual vision, then we're going to perish. Because all of us are nothing more than sitting ducks in the pond. Unless you understand freedom and where it came from and how it was obtained, and unless you start thinking in terms of protecting your rights and your freedoms, the ancient Roman law, and I find ancient Roman law very interesting. Roman law basically said, there was a maximum Roman law that says, for he who would be deceived, let him. And another maximum Roman law that says, if you do not defend your rights, you have none. And so this is what I have been trying to get young people to understand, is that you need to educate yourself about how the world really works. Because until such time as you have educated yourself and understand that knowledge is power, and this is very, very important, because as long as you don't understand how you are being used, how you're being lied to and mistreated, deceived, you're never going to be able to get out of the mess we're in. Knowledge is the key. And unfortunately, too many people are preoccupied with watching television and sports and trying to make a dollar just to stay alive. They don't realize what's really going on behind the scenes in our country of America and around the world. There's a very big story here that needs to be told. Who is running this planet and what are they doing to the human race? Not just to America, but the whole human family on the earth is in serious jeopardy, and it is calling into question the very veracity of human freedom. Unless and until we wake up and begin to take back the sovereignty of our own minds, forget about television, forget about all the nonsensical entertainment that we're bombarded with, and begin to start thinking seriously about your life and where you've come from and where you're going and what's going to happen to your children and your grandchildren when you're gone. You had better start waking up and understanding the world we live in is very, very serious trouble. And we need to wake up and understand how the world really works. That's what I hope to help you do. I'm Jordan Maxwell.
That was awesome, Jordan.
There was a philosopher, I think his name was Socrates, if I'm not mistaken it was Socrates, who eventually the government, the powers that be, shall we say, in the government of that day in ancient Greece, they came to Socrates and they suggested that he might want to do away with himself. They didn't want to have to do it themselves, so they suggested he might want to commit suicide for the good of all the nation. Why? Why was the government so anxious to have Socrates dead and gone? They said that he was corrupting the youth of Greece. He was corrupting the young people. And what was he doing? He was teaching them, he was teaching young people the facts of life, how the world works, to question government, question authority, question with the people around you. Don't just buy into anything because you're ignorant and ill-informed. Question everything. Begin to read and study on your own and begin to question powerful people, powerful governments. And so Socrates began causing young people to think too much. And eventually they had to get rid of him. He was too popular, so the government didn't want to kill him, so they just asked him to do it himself. So the same thing, the more we change, the more we stay the same. Nothing changes, and so there's nothing new under the sun. And so today, just recently, with the the rioting and revolution going on in China in Tiananmen Square, it was interesting that Henry Kissinger made this statement when this activity was going on in China, when young people were rising up against the government in Tiananmen Square. The news people asked Kissinger what he thought was going on. Why were these young people doing this? And he said, and his comment was that it was tape recordings, cassette tapes were the culprit in causing this uprising and revolution in China. And what he was saying was that young people here and from China who are living here in America, who were enjoying the fruitage of freedom and liberty and justice and education and knowledge, were making tapes, cassette tapes, and sending them back to their friends back home, to young people, their young friends back home, and their young friends back in China were reproducing those tapes Everybody has a tape recorder, so they were reproducing tapes, and before you know it, all the kids in China were listening to cassette tapes about freedom, liberty, questioning authority, questioning your masters, and questioning who supposedly owns you, and question your decisions in life. And so basically education caused a revolution. So it was a revelation which brought a revolution. And it was all caused by young people sending each other cassette tapes. So the same thing we see, in China, we saw in ancient Greece, when the great philosopher was teaching young people how to think, and they were spreading that message to other young people. What happened? It caused a revolution. And if there's ever been a time in the human race and the history of the human family on the earth that we need an intellectual, spiritual renaissance. We don't need revolutions in the street. It's quite simple. All we actually need, the civilization on the earth needs, is a spiritual and intellectual renaissance. A time when people will begin to hold important knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, questioning authority, questioning the governmental system under which you labor. It's a very important point that knowledge is a basis for power. Let me give you an example. Suppose you have a two-story building and you're going to put a lot of weight on the second floor. Before you put heavy, like printing presses and all that kind of thing, before you put any heavy weight on the second floor, go downstairs with a ladder and get a building inspector and go up through the ceiling tiles on the first floor and look at the foundation of the second floor to see if it's going to hold that kind of weight. So what you're doing is you're going downstairs, you're going down under the foundation, and you're standing under the foundation to see if the foundation is going to hold that kind of weight. So what you're doing is you're standing under what you're going to build on. That's where we get the word understanding. So unless you are able to go beneath the surface of any subject, you don't understand. And so it's time that you begin to understand the world you live in, how the government really works. It doesn't work the way you think it does. Banks do not loan money. There's a law in America that says no bank can loan money, period. That's the law. Now, how many people go to get a loan from a bank know that the law in America says no banks can loan money? How many people know that? So once you begin to understand that banks don't loan money, I mean, think about it. Just reason for a moment. Suppose I put my $100,000 of my money into a bank, and 2 days later you come in, want to buy a boat for $200,000 or $100,000, and the bank is going to give you my $100,000 to buy your boat. No possible way is that going to happen. Banks do not have the authority to take my money and give it to you. And if you don't pay, then what? I just lost my money because they gave you my money. That's not the way banks work. Banks do not loan money. The way it works is very simple. Suppose you're buying a $30,000 car, $50,000 car. That car, first of all, has to be appraised by a state-approved appraiser. So you have a government appraiser appraise the car for its value. And let's say it's $50,000. Therefore, the paperwork which that paperwork which represents that $50,000 car is referred to in commerce and business as commercial paper. And that piece of paper represents $50,000 in business. So so what happens is if you decide you want to buy the car, the dealership sends the paper to the bank. So now the bank has a $50,000 worth of commercial paper. What the bank does is they open up a bank account in your name. without you knowing it. All banks do this. They open up a bank account in your name. They sign your name on the bank account because you can't open a bank account without a signature. So they sign your name on a bank account and open up a bank account for you. But you don't know that. Then they take the $50,000 in commercial paper, which represents $50,000, and they put it into your account. So now you have a bank account in their bank with $50,000 in it. And then they take that bank account and they write a check on that for you. So the first check for the first $50,000 they write for you, and they sign it for you and give it to you so you can give it to the dealer. So you think that the bank has loaned you $50,000. No. The bank merely gave you credit on the commercial paper which they are holding. They are confirming that they have the $50,000 in the bank with the paper. They're holding the pink slip. Therefore, they will give you a credit of $50,000 based on your commercial paper. So they didn't give you anything. You gave them $50,000 on commercial paper. They just gave you a credit, and so that's the way it works. There is no money changing hands. Now let me give you another example that's even easier to understand. Suppose you were a painting contractor, and I hire you to paint my office, and you tell me it's going to cost $100 to paint my office. Well, the way it works in business, in commercial business, is that I agree to your bill of $100. So when you're through with the job, you come to me and you give me a bill, and the bill is for $100. The same thing if you go to Sears or any market or whatever, and you buy something, they're going to give you a bill. You're expected to pay it. All right, so you as a painting contractor have painted my room. When you're through, you give me a bill, and the bill I read is $400. I reach in my wallet and I pull out a $100 bill and I give it to you. Now you have been paid because I gave you a $100 bill. No, I didn't pay you anything. I paid you nothing. You gave me a bill for $100. I reach in my wallet, I give you a bill for $100. It's called a $100 bill. So now you owe me $100. It's a bill. Look on the $100 bill, and at the top it says a Federal Reserve note. It's a bank note, meaning you now owe me $100. It's a bank note. And so if you had given me a bill for $20, I give you a $20 bill. So all we're doing is just exchanging bills. That's why banks are called banks of exchange. So we're just exchanging paper. Nobody has bought anything. And because of that, the law basically says in America, you cannot pay a bill. So understand, when you say that you've got a bill that you have to pay, you cannot pay a bill in America. That's the law. But you can discharge a debt. That's different. Discharging a debt is different from paying a bill. Since you didn't pay for anything, since you're using the Federal Reserve note and you're buying something, you did not pay for the bill. You didn't pay the bill. So therefore, whatever it is you're buying, you don't own. You don't own anything. It was just a bill of exchange. So they gave you something, you give them something. They give you something worth $100 bill, and I gave them a bill for $100. So the bottom line on the way commerce works is that nobody pays anyone, period. Therefore, in point of fact, by law, no one owns anything in America. No one. So that's why you don't own your home. You don't own your car. And once you understand how the world works, it's an extraordinary story, a betrayal of the human family. Very, very interesting, dark stuff that we are not aware of. There's another law that says any official vehicle that is owned by the state, whatever state you happen to live in, the state has its own vehicles. And therefore, any state vehicle will have on the vehicle, I don't care what it is, a truck, car, motorcycle, it doesn't matter. It will have on the license or near the license, it will always have for official use only. A little sticker or a little print on the vehicle, whatever it is, and it will say for official use only. That means that this vehicle, whatever it is, 16-wheeler or a motorcycle, it doesn't matter. It's for official use only, means it's owned by the state. And anyone who's using it is officially using it for the state, not for themselves. Therefore, anytime you are going to register your car, you get a little tag in the mail, and you peel off the tag, and you're going to stick it on your car. When you get that tag, read it. Read on the tag, it says for official use only. So you're peeling it off and putting it on your car, so now your car has official use only, meaning the state owns your car. And since the state owns your car, they would like to know where their car is. So that's why once a year you have to register your car. You've got to register it to let them know where the car is, because they own the car. And incidentally, that also is why you have to have insurance and a seat belt. It's because you do not own your body. The government owns your body, in point of fact. And so your body is a security on the New York Stock Exchange, and the corporation that owns you, and you are owned. There are laws that expressly say that you are owned. You just don't know it. And since you are owned, your owners do not want you to get hurt, so that they have to take care of you, because you're a security on the New York Stock Exchange. So you must carry insurance. Well, I mean, that makes sense if you've got a stock on the stock market. If you can insure it, that's even better. And so that's why you have to have a license, you have to have insurance. You can't get married without a license, because everything in our life is a business. Getting married is a business. That's why you have to have a license to get married. The word license simply means a permit to do something, which without that permit is unlawful. Therefore, is totally unlawful for you to in any way, shape, or form have any relationship with a male or a female intimately without a license. So that's why you have to have a license to get married. Why? It's because you are considered by law a maritime admiralty product. It's a very big story, very, very deep, and most people have never heard such a thing. But the bottom line is, what I'm telling you is absolutely true. All you have to do is just start reading a little bit about how commerce works, how government works, how banks work. It's a fascinating story about how the world in no possible way works the way you think it does. So all I'm suggesting is that you might want to, for the first time in your life, start thinking seriously about where you're going and where your country is going, and what's going to happen to your children and your grandchildren when you wake up one day to discover your freedoms are gone, your country is gone, your protections that were guaranteed to you as a citizen are gone. We are going to be in very serious trouble because we are ill-informed, unread, undisciplined, and have been taught to bow down and curtsy before royalty. We fall all over ourselves with celebrities, and all we understand anymore is the ball games and the sports and the entertainment. But nobody is suggesting that we might want to start reading the foundations of this country, begin to read and understand how government really works. Once you begin to see how a bank works, why do you have a bank? Why do we do any banking? Banks are found on both sides of a river. They're called river banks. What does a river bank do? It directs the flow of the currency, because your money is called currency, because it's a ebb and flow of a current. And it's called liquid asset. And when you can't pay for something, then you're underwater. It's an extraordinary story, as I said, about the deception that goes on throughout the world about the real world and how it actually works. So all I'm suggesting is that you might want to take some time out of your life and start looking at the reality of the world you live in, because the world is growing more and more dangerous, more and more ignorant, and extremely violent. And unless and until the people rise up and decide to take back their sovereignty and do something about their lives and quit waiting for government to do something, you know, because in America, we Americans love to talk about how we have the ability to elect our leaders. We're big on talking about how we can elect our leaders. But as Dick Gregory once said a long time ago, yes, we can elect our leaders, but you can't select your leaders. You don't select anyone. Your masters who own you will select who will run. You can merely vote on whoever they decide to allow you to vote on. And so when people go to the polls, for instance, people every 4 years are talking about going to the polls. How many people have ever wondered, what does the word poll mean? Why do you have to go to the poll? It's like Gallup, the Gallup company, you know, it's called the Gallup poll. Anytime some company is taking a poll, what does that mean? It doesn't mean that they are electing anybody. You take a poll to get a consensus of what the people are thinking. That's what a poll is. It's called a Gallup poll. There are many other companies that conduct polls for universities, for government. So that's what a poll is to get a consensus of what the people are thinking. How many people like this color or this product as opposed to how many like the Pepsi as opposed to Coca-Cola as opposed to root beer? And so they take a poll. And so the poll shows that that the masses all particularly like one product. That's all they wanted to know. Just which one do you like best? It doesn't mean much of anything. It's just a poll. And so every 4 years, Americans go to the poll to tell their masters who own them. And they do own you. Your body is a security on the New York Stock Exchange. You need to understand that. And so every 4 years, your masters who actually own your body want to know which one of these individuals that work for us, they work for the corporation, you work for the company, but which one of these would you feel better about having at the head of the company? Which one do you personally like? All 6 of them work for the company. They work for the government, period. But which one do you particularly like? Because this way, if you particularly like one and you vote for him, then we will make him the president of the company, and you will be happy because it was your choice. No, it wasn't your choice. You didn't have the opportunity to select your leader. You only had the opportunity to elect one of the 6 that they gave you, and all 6 work for the same company. So this is why nothing ever gets done, because people don't understand how their world really works. Extraordinary stuff. I suspect that this is a very important time in human history, and especially in the history of our country, when you don't know how your government works. You had better wake up and understand that you have left your government in the hands of other people to take care of things for you because you're too busy with your everyday life. Well, when you leave your personal business and your children and your life in the hands of someone else to take care of you, they're going to take care of you all right. Whatever decisions they make, they're going to take care of themselves, not you. Because you left yourself in their care, they will decide what you will eat. They will decide what you will wear. They will decide if you will have a job or not. Why? Well, because you left yourself in my care. I'm supposed to be in charge of you. So I will decide how much you will make. And you can bet that I'm going to make 1,000 times more than you do. Because I'm in charge. After all, you voted for me. So I'm just saying there's time for us to wake up. These are very evil days, and unless America is ready to wake up and face the facts that we have been lied to, deceived, and tricked into surrendering our lives, our minds, our sovereignty of thinking, and as I said in the beginning, what we need more than anything now is a spiritual and intellectual renaissance, a revolution spiritually around the world where people wake up to the responsibility to stand before your Creator and be a normal adult human being who knows what's going on, who understands the world, and can contribute something to the good for the whole human race. But it's going to require that you educate yourself and understand how the world works. Again, my name is Jordan Maxwell, and thank you for listening.
All right, let me just go through my cameras because I know decades now, because it's 5 decades. It's a lot, Jordan.
Yeah, I know. God knows, it sure as hell is.
We're ready whenever you are. I just reset all my cameras. We're good to go. I got 20 more minutes on this one, so if I do kind of abruptly stop you, I apologize. It's up to change the tape.
I have learned many things in the past 53 years of my life and examining the world in which I live. And one thing I've come to quite a few conclusions. One thing in particular is I see no advantage in confronting power. Anytime you confront power, you will pay for it. The Jews who stood up to Adolf Hitler paid a hell of a price. The poor people of Russia who stood up to the tyranny of the communist movement in the Soviet Union paid a terrible price. You always pay a terrible price when you stand up against tyranny, violence. And since the world that we live in today is basically run by fear and tyranny and violence and threats, and there is no longer any freedom and liberty and justice for all, which America used to be famous for. You know, Superman in one of the movies said he stands for the American way, freedom, liberty, and justice for all. Well, I like what Dick Gregory said, you're no longer free or brave. This is not a land of the free and a home of the brave. We're not free or brave. So it does not pay to confront government or to confront your masters. The way I have chosen to do my work is just to quietly try and help young people and anyone else who is listening, but I'm mostly concerned with the lives of young people, because older people usually are so jaded they don't want to change anything. They're not interested in changing anything. But young people see the value in changing for the better. Older people don't. And so I have always wanted to just quietly do the best I can to cause young people to read, study, educate themselves, intellectually and spiritually enlighten themselves, because this is very important in this time of these times in which we're living. For young people to understand the word grounding, you need to be grounded. You're a biological battery, and you need to be grounded. And we know scientifically that when you take your shoes off and walk in the grass or walk on the beach, you are grounding yourself because, as I said, your body is a biological, electrical battery of sorts. And so you're grounding yourself with your Creator, with your earth, with the earth that you came from. And so the best way to ground yourself is to also spiritually and intellectually begin to educate yourself, begin to read and study. And of course that's a very radical and revolutionary idea, because the tyrants of Russia that took over the Russian people, the Soviet Union, Adolf Hitler, who took over the Nazis, took over Nazi Germany, That was something very, very dangerous to do under those totalitarian dictatorships, is to start thinking on your own and questioning authority. You don't question Adolf Hitler, and you don't question Mao Zedong in China. You don't question the communist emperors. You don't question the warlords or the mafia or the gangs. You don't question that. It's tyranny, it's fear. And unless and until the human race can get back their sovereignty to question everything, to question the ethics, the laws, the rulers, who these people are who rule over us, where do they get their authority to rule over us, unless you're ready to do that, you might as well understand your children and your grandchildren are going to live under tyranny. They're going to live in a very violent, dark, and evil world that is coming. And so I believe that the only hope for the human race is for a spiritual and intellectual renaissance where people begin to question everything. Do not accept anything from anyone unless you can prove it to yourself. Because there's a lot of people out there with a lot of money and very powerful people who will lie to you through their teeth and couldn't care less because they have no respect for you and they know that you're going to buy anything they say and therefore they will have their way with you. I would suggest to save the human family, you might want to start quietly resisting tyranny. Begin to question everything. Read, study, find out how commerce works. Find out how the law really works. Find out how this country was founded, where freedom came from. Go back and start reading and studying, and you're going to find out the world has come a long ways down this dark hole into tyranny and violence because people have allowed it. It was Albert Einstein who said, the world is a very dangerous place, not because bad people do bad things, but because the rest of humanity does nothing. And that's the truth. That is the real truth. The real problem on the earth today is that, as the philosophers once said, all that is needed for evil to exist and prosper is for enough good people to do nothing. And so that's the problem. Today, overwhelming majorities of the American people couldn't care less. As long as they have the food to eat and the cold beer to drink and they're entertained, just as it was in the Roman Empire, as long as you have the entertainment and alcohol and the music and whatever it is, that all your drugs, we're the biggest drug-using nation in the world. Our people are on drugs everywhere. Legal and illegal, doesn't matter. We are a drug-taking society. The reason why is because we as a people in America know we've been had. And we have no power because knowledge is power and we have no knowledge and we know it. So I'm suggesting if you want to save the world for your children, for your grandchildren, you might want to start doing something you've never done before. Slowly but surely, read, question, think, and evaluate what's going on, and do not take the word of anyone. There's a scripture that says, there's a scripture in the Bible in the New Testament that says, do not trust any man. Put not your trust in earthly man, in whom there is no salvation. Every time people are jumping in the streets and praying and crying and dancing in the streets because their man got to be president, and eventually 6 months later they will find out he was nothing more than just one more criminal running a scam on them. So all we need to do is just keep voting, just keep doing what you've always done, because it's never gone anywhere and it's never going to go anywhere. Why? Because that's what we want. As a nation, we want people to lead us. And when people lead you, they're going to mislead you. So you better start taking back your own mind and your own sovereignty and start thinking for yourself, which has made America great. We were a free country because we did not want to cower ourselves to tyranny. We wanted to question everything. Well, the world has changed. We've lost our freedom. We've lost our jobs. We've lost our money. Many of us have lost our homes. And now generally the country is just losing its mind. And that's why drugs are on sale everywhere. The meddling cartels are selling drugs and making billions off of America. On every street corner in America there are drug sales. Every corner has a liquor store. It's because somebody is wise enough to know that they're using us and that we are frustrated and we need drugs and alcohol and entertainment just to get by from day to day. So this is the world you're leaving for your children. This is the world you're leaving for your grandchildren. You need to wake up, get yourself grounded in intelligence, wisdom, and knowledge, and start asking questions. You better do it, and you better do it soon. The world we know is not going to be here much longer. What your masters have planned for this world, you have no idea in the world what's coming. This is very serious. You need to wake up.
1 second, let me change my battery.
Yep, and let me hear it.
Let me talk for a few moments about entertainment. If you go back into history, into European history, thousands of years ago, even before the Roman Empire dominated Europe, there was already a governmental system in operation in Europe, even before the Roman Empire existed. There were already lots of people living there, and they had a whole system of government in operation. And that system was consisting of lawyers and doctors and religious leaders and law enforcement, etc., etc. And that system was called the Druids. There was a Druidic system. The Druids were a Celtic or a Celtic, can be spelled either way with a K or a C, Celtic or Celtic European Druid system. And one of the most important symbols in that ancient Druidic system that ruled Europe before the Roman Empire, and the Druids are still in existence today in Europe, and there are even Druid societies in America today. So they haven't completely gone. But the point I wish to make is that in the ancient world, in the ancient European world, was a Druidic system. And one of the most important symbols in that European Druidic system was a magic wand. Like Merlin the magician with his magic wand, always waving the magic wand. The same idea as today with the orchestra leaders who have the magic wand, and of course you play to their tune. They're the boss. They have the magic wand. And Merlin the magician, as I said, was always a Druidic symbol for power, a magic wand. Magic wands were always made out of the wood of a holly tree. It was made out of Hollywood. Once you understand Hollywood, you begin to understand the Druidic system, which we call Hollywood. And then you begin to see the symbols, the words, the terms. Hollywood, as my dear friend Dick Gregory once said, Hollywood does three things. They tell you what your masters have done in the past, what they're doing now, and what they're getting ready to do. That's what Hollywood is there for, to tell you the history and where you are now and where you're going. Because people like Steven Spielberg and George Lucas are many things, but stupid is not one of them. They're brilliant directors and producers. They're extraordinarily brilliant writers and people in Hollywood who know what's going on. They know where the world is going, and they're putting it into movies. They're showing you what it was like many years ago, what it's like now, and they're making movies about what's coming. That's Hollywood, druidic system of entertainment. You need to wake up and understand what's going on here. Now, in commerce, you need to also understand the fact that your body is a security on the New York Stock Exchange. This is a concept that most people have never heard, and it's totally foreign to your thinking. But your body is a security on the New York Stock Exchange. There are two kinds of laws. Let me explain this. There are two kinds of laws. As far back as the Roman Empire, the Caesars of Rome proclaimed that there were two kinds of laws. There are only two things on the earth. There's water and land. Therefore, it would follow that there's only two kinds of law on the earth. The law of the land and the law of the sea. The law of water. We've all heard the term the law of the land. But most people do not realize that that is the reason why we call it the law of the land is because it's differentiating between the law of the sea. There's a second law. So that's why when you walk into a court, you will see a fence with a gate. And the people sitting out here is under what you call the law of the land, because the people live on the land. But once you walk through those gates, when your name is called and you walk through the gates, those gates are referred to in court as a water gate. A water gate is when you go through the canal, like the Panama Canal, they have water gates. And when the water gate opens, the water rises, so that they close the gate and the next gate opens and it rises again. And so when you go into a court, your name is called, and if you put your hand on the gate, there's a piece of wood on the top of the gate. So when your name is called, you put your hand on the gate and you open the gate. The gate is a water gate. And there's a piece of wood on the top of the gate. It's called a bar, the B-A-R. And you're not licensed to pass the bar. And so you are passing the bar when you are not licensed to pass the bar. The attorney is licensed to pass the bar, not you. So therefore, when you walk past the gate, the bar, you are now in hot water. And someone's going to have to bail you out. And so that's why all commerce and all life has to do with maritime admiralty, or the law of water. And as I said, there are two kinds of law, the law of the land and the law of the sea. The law of the sea, when we talk about the sea, the oceans, we always refer to the oceans, as well as one of the ancient words for the ocean or for the sea was mer, M-E-R, which gives us our word mermaid. And so the sea, or mer, was always enchanting, because the waves come in, they go out, they come in and go out, and it's hypnotic. And so the waves coming in and going out, it's beautiful, it's relaxing, it's metaphysical, and so it's very, what we call, enchanting. So therefore, mer is enchanting. And so the law of the sea became known as a law of the merchant. And so the law of the merchant, or merchant, is the law of the sea, or the law of water, and water represents in law, whether you know it or not, in law, water represents money. Money is water. So that's why people say, money goes through your hands like water. No, money is water. It is the liquid asset, the cash flow. And of course we say if you're losing your house is underwater, or you're drowning in debt. You can go on for hours with this subject about how maritime admiralty, or the law of banking, is actually the law of water. And as I said before, that's why you have banks, because banks are on both sides of a river. It's a river bank, and with a river bank, it directs the flow of the water, or the currency. So your money is a currency. So the whole idea of life on the earth is that there are two kinds of law, the law of the land and the law of the sea. And once you understand that all activity of humans on the earth, crime, doesn't matter what kind of activity, whatever the activity you're involved in, is under the law of the sea. It's under maritime admiralty law. And you need to understand that. So that you need to understand what the word maritime law means. It means the law of the sea. Let me give you an example about how the law of the sea works. All ships, rocket ship, sailing ship, item has to have its own certificate of manifest. You have to have how much does the car weigh, how much does it weigh, what color was it, does it have air conditioning, is it 4-door or 2-door? So it has to have its own certificate of manifest. Why? Because it came in on a ship and she delivered the product on the water, on the high seas. And so she's now sitting in her berth. So this is why when you were born, your mother's water broke. And you came out as a maritime admiralty product because you came out of water. Therefore, you have to have a birth certificate, a certificate of manifest from the ship who sits in the harbor in her berth. So you have to have a birth certificate. Why? And who has jurisdiction over the birth certificate is the dock, because that's where the ship is sitting. It's sitting at the dock. So the dock has to sign your birth certificate. Why? Because you are a maritime admiralty product. The banks will buy your body. And it's a story of the way banks work, the way maritime admiralty commerce works. You need to understand that you are a product. This is why if you are looking for a job, you're not looking for employment. You go to a human resource center because you are nothing more than a resource. You're a human resource. Just like iron and copper and oil and silver, and you're a resource. So you need to understand how this stuff works. When you drive through the downtown Los Angeles, you will see gang graffiti on the walls. Most people driving by and seeing gang graffiti just shake their head because it's just incredible the way that young people destroy property by spray painting graffiti on walls. But young people who understand that graffiti is a symbol, it means something. And if you don't understand the symbolism, you need to stay out of that neighborhood. So the same thing is happening all around the world. If you understand the flags and the symbols on flags, or the coats of arms, or the heraldry, or the corporate logos that companies and corporations use, these are all symbols and words and terms that are being used. So, unless and until you understand that the whole world is a business, the entire earth is a business. This is why you have to have a license. You have to have a license to get married, because whether you understand it or not, you are considered, in this country, you are considered to be a corporation. Your body is a corporation, a company. That's why when I see you with the person, I say, you know what, that person you were with is bad company. Company? And you say, mind your own business. Business? And then I find out you're going to get married, and then you're going to have a partner. Company, business, partner. All human relations is corporate business. That's why you have to have a license to get married. If your marriage doesn't work, you're not going to God, you're going to court. And you're going to bring your money and all of your assets with you, because it's just business. So you need to understand how this stuff works. Life is nothing more than a business. And the entire world is a corporation. Now there's a world of difference today There's a world of difference between the United States of America and the word United States. The word United States by itself means one thing. United States of America means something totally different. So that's another subject for another time. You need to understand how your government really works. Again, I'm saying that the most important thing that I would like for my audience to understand is that they need to educate themselves to the world they live in. Nothing works the way you think it does. Nothing. I was talking about symbols and talking about the gang symbols. Well, nothing is more interesting when you're talking about symbols.
Give me 1 minute.
Yep.
I'm sorry about that.
So I was talking about the symbols, the gang symbols, and how they are actually telling you something. Well, the whole world is operating with symbols. As I said, corporate logos, company logos, national coats of arms, halotry, flags, badges, police badges, fire department. All these are different symbols, and they mean something. And I have talked for many years about the symbols on even just the $1 bill. Very interesting subject about the symbols on American dollar bill. For instance, on this side you will see the eagle. The eagle has two wings. Okay? The eagle has two wings, a left wing and a right wing. And this is why you have left and right wing politics, because the eagle only has two wings. So you only have Democratic and Republican wings in America. You cannot have a third wing. This is why third parties have never been allowed and will never be allowed in America, because the eagle only has two wings, a left wing and a right wing. Then above the eagle you will see 13 stars. And the 13 stars collectively, together, make up what we call a hexagram, or the Star of David. There are 9 tail feathers. There are 13 stripes in the flag. There are 13 arrows. There are 13 leaves. There are 13 berries. There are 13 layers of the pyramid. Count them, 13 layers. On the opposite side with the pyramid, and very few people have ever wondered, why is there a pyramid on an American dollar bill? Well, beneath the pyramid, you will see on the pyramid, it says 1776 in Roman numerals. And the words beneath it, Novus Ordo Seclorum, which is in Latin, New Order of the World. So you've heard the Bushes talking about a new world order. Well, that's exactly what's happening. The whole world is being taken over into what is called a new world order, right here on the dollar bill. Now, what's important about this symbol on the back of the dollar bill, virtually no one realizes that the symbol of the pyramid with the eye at the top, what does it represent? Well, there are many, many websites and many people talking about this symbol, and virtually every one of them is wrong. It does not mean what the Christians say it means. It has nothing to do with the devil or demons or Illuminati or any of that. I've been looking at this subject for over 53 years. And I will tell you that this symbol does not represent the devil. It does not represent Lucifer. It does not represent anything evil or dark or bad. Although there are many Christian groups who want to tell you this represents the eye of Lucifer and the devil. The word devil is simply a D in front of the word evil. Write evil and put a D in front of it, becomes devil. The word God comes from the same root as good. So you take an O out of good, becomes God. God is good and devil is evil. Merely words. I'm talking about facts. Here is the facts of the pyramid on the dollar bill. The pyramid with the all-seeing eye at the top, you will see a light emanating from around the eye. The light is the sun. The pyramid with the all-seeing eye is actually the symbol for the Messiah in the Hebrew theology. In ancient Hebrew theology, Messiah, not Jesus. Jesus is Messiah in Christian theology. But in the Hebrew theology, knew nothing about Jesus, knew nothing about the Christian Messiah. In the original Hebrew, Messiah was always understood to be a triangle on top of a pyramid. That's what the very word Messiah implied. The word Messiah, twice in the Old Testament, the Messiah is referred to as the chief cornerstone the builders rejected. I think one time was in Isaiah and once was in the book of Psalms. Twice in the Old Testament, the Messiah, not Jesus, Messiah, was referred to as the chief cornerstone the builders rejected. Then twice in the New Testament, Jesus is also referred to as the chief cornerstone the builders rejected. Same interpretation, different words, one in Hebrew, one in Greek and Aramaic, and the New Testament. So the word chief cornerstone, this is why you will hear Christians who do not understand the terminology and are totally wrong. They will say that Jesus is the cornerstone of the church. Absolutely not. That's not what the Bible says. Jesus is not the cornerstone of the Christian church, period. The scripture very expressly says that Jesus is the chief cornerstone that the builders rejected, not cornerstone. Cornerstones are, of course, found on the corner of a building. Jesus is not on the corner of a building. The scripture says he is the peak of the building. He's not on the corner. And so Jesus is not the cornerstone of the church. He is the chief cornerstone of the church. And the very word chief cornerstone in Hebrew for Messiah and in the New Testament for Jesus means the same thing. That's a Hebrew word or a Greek word. And they mean the same thing. They mean in the Hebrew and Greek, a chief cornerstone is a triangle perched on top of a pyramid. That's what the word means. So this symbol on the back of the dollar bill represents the Jewish Messiah. Or, for Christians, Jesus, the Messiah. That's what the symbol on the dollar bill actually means. And this is why, of course, you will see, as I showed you before, on the top of the eagle, you will see 13 stars. The 13 stars are in the configuration of a hexagram, or what we call the Star of David. So there's a Star of David on the American presidential seal, and the symbol for the Jewish Messiah on the back, called the chief cornerstone the builders rejected. This dollar bill is completely filled with Christian and Jewish symbols. And if you don't understand the Jewish occult symbols and ancient symbols used by Israel, then you're never going to understand the dollar bill that's in your hand. The very idea of the eagle holding on one side 13 berries and 13 leaves, the 13 arrows, the 13 strips on the American flag. Very interesting. Why 13? It has to do with numerology, coming from the ancient Jewish system and from the ancient Christian system. It's a very interesting story. I'm just drawing your attention to the fact that so much of what you see and what you hear each day in your life does not mean what you think it means. So the next time you hear someone talking about the symbols on the back of the dollar bill being demonic and being Horus and being the devil worship, just remember these are Christian and Jewish symbols from the Bible. That's another subject we could talk about. And that's another subject we could talk about another time.
Okay.
While I'm thinking about that, let's do it now then.
All right, yes, absolutely. Let's do it. I'm ready.
Now, the only way that people are going to learn anything is by fellow communication. People communicating with other people, learning from other people, and passing that knowledge on. That's the way the human race educates itself. That's the way we have grown. That's why people like myself are referred to as researchers. The word is R-E, researchers. Why? It's because I'm not doing anything new. Myself and others like me who are referred to as writers, authors, and researchers are merely researching, meaning other people have done the searching, other people have dug out the facts, and many centuries ago, maybe many thousands of years ago. And so this is what happens in a court. If you're going to make a decision in a court, you have to do some research. Go back into the records and see what the courts before you have said. See what the judges have said 30 years ago about this particular subject. So what you're doing is you're researching. Do it again. And so today, the way young people need to understand is that there's knowledge out there that you haven't been given. And you need to research that knowledge. And the way it's done is very simply, you don't confront authority. Just go to the library, especially today with the technology that exists on the web. All you have to do is go on the web and start researching words and terms and symbols and how government works. Where do religions come from? Where do the religious ideas that we espouse and the things that we talk about in Christianity and Judaism and Islam, where do these ideas even come from? How did these great religious movements get started? And where does the money come from? And what is the connection between religion and governments today? It's very interesting when you start looking at the oil companies. For many years, oil companies, most people don't know this because they don't study it, but oil companies have been financing churches, Protestant and Catholic churches, especially Protestant churches, have been getting a lot of money from oil corporations for their missionary movements. A lot of the big churches have huge missionary movements financed by the oil companies. There was a large book, a very thick book, written many years ago that you might be able to find in the library called Thy Will Be Done. And it had about 6 different authors, but the book is called Thy Will Be Done. And it's a very thick book, documented every page about how the oil companies are financing churches for their missionary movements, sending missionaries out to different countries to prepare them for Christianity and for the Lord, and then when the people are now acclimated to the new Christian environment in their country, now quietly the oil companies can come in, now they can send in the CIA and all of these secret societies and government. They can begin to come into the country and set up the apparatus for the oil companies, for the corporations. But they needed to get the people's approval first, so we send in the Christian missionaries. Go read the book, Thy Will Be Done. But I was again suggesting that what we want to do is to educate the young people and educate people generally a little by little by little. It's very difficult to spring new ideas on people. But as it was proven in China with the young people who were spreading the concept of freedom and liberty and dignity on tapes throughout China, which caused the Tiananmen Revolution, I suggest the same thing might want to be done now. Young people ought to begin to talk to each other, begin to